right, Mayor Kriseman, take it away.
All right, thank you, David. Let me first welcome everyone to the Conference of Mayors Environmental Committee meeting. My name is Rick Kriseman. I am the mayor of St. Petersburg, Florida, and chair of this committee. If you are a mayor, your picture, or at least your name, should be on our screens. And if you don't see yourself, I'd ask you to please use your toolbar or the chat function to let us know that you are not appearing on screen, and our staff will try and fix that. We will also ask you to please mute your microphones unless you would like to speak or ask a question. And then you can use the raise hand feature or the chat function, and we'll call on you. I also want to remind everyone that this session is recorded and it's open to the press. So before I get started, I want to acknowledge our great president and someone that I am honored to call my friend, Mayor Nan Whaley of Dayton, and ask Nan if you'd like to make any statements or comments.
Hey, everybody, just wanted to stop in and say hello. Thanks, Mayor Kriseman, for his great work on the standing committee. I wish we could all be in person in Austin, but we have to make sacrifices, of course, as we're used to as mayors. And just want to say how much I appreciate your all's commitment to this organization. Learning to, do our work over the past 18 months via Zoom, etc. I think we've gotten an awful lot done. So just wanted to stop by briefly, say thank you to Mayor Kriseman and appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Always great to see you. I wish we were in person to be able to give a hug to each other. Also, would like to call on the vice chair of this committee and the chair of the Mayor's Water Council, Lima Mayor Dave Berger. For those of you who may not know this, this will be Mayor Berger's last annual meeting. He is leaving office after serving as mayor for, I think it's somewhere around 30 years. And quite frankly, we owe him a big time debt of gratitude for shepherding the conference's successful efforts to reshape the EPA and pass legislation that helps all cities who are facing costly water and wastewater mandates and expensive bills. So I want to thank you, Mayor Berger, for your service. And would you like to make a few comments?
Well, thank you, Mayor Kriseman. It's good to participate here with you. Thank you for your kind remarks. November 30 will end for me 32 years as Lima's mayor. I'm glad to have heard you actually properly speak our name. It's often Lima to most folks, but this has been a privilege for me to, and I tell folks all the time that the U.S. Conference of Mayors is the most important network of professionals that I deal with and has brought incredible value back home to my community.
So I think from my perspective.
And so I appreciate participating with all of you today and look forward to our discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Berger. And again, we greatly appreciate all of your service to this organization. Now on to our program. Today we are going to be considering our resolutions followed by some speakers on the city's Race to Zero campaign. Before we begin, I did want to open up with some potential good news. As you may know, the Senate passed the bipartisan infrastructure framework, which included many helpful items to local governments, including $15 billion to remove lead pipes, although only half of that is in the form of grants and the rest are in loans. We also got funding for two of our signature programs, $1.5 billion for Brownsfields, which is $300 million over 5 years. And thank you, Mayor Bolwaj, and $550 million for fiscal year 2022 for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. And we are working to add to that amount. But if passed, all cities over 35,000 will get money to implement or enhance policy and programs that promote energy conservation efforts in a wide variety of areas, including transportation, buildings, the energy sector, and even solid waste and recycling. So I want to strongly urge you to continue talking to your members of Congress to get these programs funded and passed by the House. I especially want to thank our New Jersey mayors. Again, a hats off to Mayor Boage and Mayor Waller for all of their hard work with Chairman Frank Pallone, who has said the EECBG is one of his top priorities. And this program will greatly assist us all in our local climate efforts. So let's move on to some housekeeping issues. We've got a few of those before we start discussing our resolutions. Mayors, if you still would like to co-sponsor a resolution, you can go to the community.usmayors.org website or use the mobile app. You have until noon on Tuesday, August 31st to add your names. Now, using the same website or app, mayors can also register a no vote on a resolution that passes in a standing committee today. And remember, this option is only available to members of the standing committee in which the resolution passes, and it's only available until noon on Monday. For members of the committee and other member mayors, you can also register a no vote on any resolution by 5 p.m. September 1st of this year. And please note that all of these times are Eastern Standard. Now, for those mayors who are on the screen, you can speak to any resolution or ask a question of our speakers by using the raise hand feature and unmuting your line, and I'll recognize you to speak. And once again, if you are a mayor and you are not on the screen, please send a chat message to our staff, to Judy or David, and they will promote you to the screen. And please also note that only mayors of this committee are allowed to vote on the resolutions. And when it's time to vote on a resolution, I'm going to ask people to raise their hand like this in front of your screen so that our staff can count your votes. And the final piece of housekeeping, I want to mention that we are joined by our parliamentarian, Tim Wynn, in case we have any questions or I say something really stupid that's wrong. Tim will correct me. So thank you, Tim. All right. Now that the housekeeping is out of the way, it's time for us to consider our submitted resolutions. There are 17 resolutions that were submitted in a timely fashion. All of the resolutions were posted on the conference website, and I hope that each of you has had an opportunity to review them. Given the large number of resolutions, we're going to try and do some of them as a group. And according to the rules, any member has a right to remove any of these resolutions for separate consideration. Once removed, that resolution would be discussed and debated and put to a vote individually. And I'll provide the number and name of each resolution. If a mayor would like for any of them to be removed or pulled, please say something either after I name the resolution or when we get done with the list of resolutions. Or you can ask for a resolution to be pulled via the chat function. Now, the first resolutions that I'm going to read are all resolutions that deal with climate change. And they are as follows. Resolution number 45, cities using architecture, urban design, and land use to combat climate change. Resolution number 46, combating climate change. Resolution number 47, in support of resilience to extreme weather and climate change. Resolution number 48, in support of climate resilience and equity. Resolution number 49, support the National Declaration of a Climate Emergency and center equity in climate action. Resolution number 50, support for diversity in the environmental movement. Resolution 39, renew and fully fund the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, or EECBG program. Resolution number 41, support for cities race to zero. Resolution number 42, in support of equity, green jobs, and building retrofits. Resolution number 17, supporting climate resiliency and affordable and public housing. And resolution number 51, in support of the creation of a civilian climate corps. Now, those were all the resolutions dealing with climate change. So I'm going to pause for a moment to see if any mayor would like for any of these resolutions, these 11 I just read, to be pulled. All right. I'm not hearing anything. Oh, I see Mayor Berger.
I guess I don't know if it's appropriate to pull. Well, I will suggest that we pull the support for diversity and environmental movement, resolution 50.
Anyone else like for a resolution to be pulled? All right, hearing no other requests, I'd now like to read the other resolutions that deal with other environmental issues. And once again, as I read the resolution, either before or after I finish reading it or when I finish the list, we'll give you an opportunity to request that a resolution be pulled. First one is resolution number 44, to require that the U.S. Department of Energy focus on the safe treatment and storage of radioactive waste on site, where appropriate, to mitigate health and environmental risks of transporting low, high, and mixed level waste to off-site disposal facilities. Resolution number 50, I'm sorry?
I just want to make sure that everyone knows, originally that was listed as resolution 52. It's 44 in the Energy Committee, it was 52 in ours. We caught that mistake on Tuesday. And so the number is 44. I just wanted to, the original packet I had sent out last Friday would have said 52. So I just wanted to specify that. Sorry for interrupting, Mayor Kriseman.
No, that's all right. Thank you for that clarification, Judy. Resolution number 53, address backlog of U.S. Army Corps of Engineers projects. Resolution number 54, new innovations used at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte for structural cleaning with on-site wastewater filtration. Resolution number 55, the future of clean and safe water resources in American cities. Resolution number 56, recycling is infrastructure. And resolution number 57, support plastic pollution reduction. Would any member like to have any of these resolutions pulled and considered separately? Mayor Berger.
I'd like to talk about the resolution number 55.
55. Okay. And anyone else like to pull a resolution? And I'm going to ask that resolutions 54 and 57 also be pulled for separate consideration. All right. So, excuse me, if there are no objections, the proposed resolutions contained in the resolution packets, with the exception of the resolutions which we have pulled for separate consideration, which I believe are 50, 55, 54, and 57, will be approved. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the proposed resolutions contained in our resolution packet are hereby approved. And so now we will move on to the resolutions which were pulled. And we'll take up resolution number 50 first. This resolution is support for diversity in the environmental movement. Mayor Berger, I believe you asked for that one to be pulled. So if you'd like to speak to that one.
Thank you, Mayor Kriseman. The goal of the resolution I have no problem with. My concern is in the second or third resolved paragraph, where it talks about the U.S. Conference of Mayors commits to holding environmental organizations and philanthropies accountable. I'm not sure how that is done. I can see the second resolved section about calling on environmental organizations and the philanthropies that support them to commit to practices that promote diversity. I just don't know that the third paragraph is something that we can do. That's my concern.
Judy's pulling it up for us all so we can see it.
I've just pulled it and hopefully you can see it in front of you.
guess what I would suggest is that unless someone has language, substitute language, I would suggest that that third resolves section be deleted.
Would anyone else like to make a comment about this proposed change to the resolution? Mayor, is that Mayor Pauly?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kriseman. I support that change as well. I think we need to make sure that when we're talking about outcomes that we're trying to achieve, we have to have some sort of leverage or some sort of way to get that outcome. And I'm not sure how we would do that third one either. Thanks.
Any other comments related to the suggestion of Mayor Berger? I don't see any other hands at this point. So would it be appropriate then would it be a motion to amend the resolution to strike that language? Is that the format that this would take?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. It would be a motion to strike out that last resolved clause. And that
I'll
would
make-
require a majority vote.
I'll make the motion that the third resolved clause of the draft resolution number 50 be struck.
I'll second the motion. Mary Lou, Mayor Pauly.
Thank you. And Mr. Parliamentarian, would we do it with a hand vote? Would that be the appropriate way?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. All right, all those in favor of the motion to strike that third be it further resolved paragraph, please signify such by raising your hand. And I see Mayor Goodman, was your hand raised? I hope to vote as opposed to speak to it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, if any opposed, please raise your hand. All right, the motion carries. And so now I think we would be voting on the resolution as amended. Correct, Mr. Parliamentarian? I see you nodding your head.
That is correct.
Very good. So all those in favor of the resolution as amended, please signify such by raising your hand. All right, and any opposed, please signify such by raising your hand. Okay, the resolution is approved as amended. Thank you all. The next resolution that we'll take up that was pulled is, I believe, number 55, which is the future of clean and safe water resources in American cities. And Mayor Berger, I turn the floor over to you to discuss your concerns.
Well, I'm advocating for this resolution. It is a history of our experience with the mandates resulting from Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. And I won't go into that history, but I will want to call your attention to the resolved clauses because it kind of lays out a forward-going agenda for how the Conference of Mayors would continue to engage with the federal government on the wide-ranging impacts of these laws as they're affecting our communities. Specifically, it asks for the Congress to adopt legislation that basically would take the now integrated planning framework that's a part of the Clean Water Act and the revised financial capability assessment tool and to incorporate that framework beyond the Clean Water Act and apply it to the Safe Drinking Water Act. that is a way of beginning to move these regulatory actions out of the silos that they're in, because all of this impacts the same pocketbooks, and we need the same kind of analysis of affordability to be applied across the board in these regimes. Further, this calls on Congress to adopt legislation that would also step up the process of converting the consent decrees that many of us have signed into actual permits, which would make those more manageable for our utilities. It also goes into a variety of suggestions about how we move from the kind of pay for alternatives that we currently have, which is basically to continue to raise rates in an unaffordable way on households in our communities, and look at ways of beginning to actually provide relief to the poor and middle income folks that are bearing the brunt of the costs that this is entailing. And then finally, in the last clause, it calls out the fact that while US EPA, I think, has demonstrated their willingness to act in good faith, I'm not sure that we've got such a willing partner in the Department of Justice. And they tend to continue to bully communities as opposed to seeing communities as the stewards of these regulatory enactments that we're responsible for. So with that, Mayor Kriseman, I yield.
Thank you, Mayor Berger. Does anyone else have any comments or debate related to this resolution? Seeing none, the question is now on the approval of resolution number 55, which has been set aside for a separate consideration. Would those who are in favor, please signify such by raising your hand. And all of those opposed, please signify such by raising your hand.
It was unanimous.
Very good. So the resolution is approved. Thank you very much. The next one that had been pulled was resolution number 54, new innovations used at University of North Carolina at Charlotte for structural cleaning with on-site wastewater filtration. I asked for that one to be pulled specifically because I wasn't quite sure in reading it what we were being asked to do. We weren't asking anything of the EPA as far as setting standards. It really wasn't endorsing anything. There was some discussion in the resolution about local standards. It just felt to me that the resolution really hadn't been fully cooked, I'll just say it that way. And so I wasn't prepared to move forward. I would probably move to, I guess the proper term would, I don't know if it's to table it or what's Mr. Parliamentarian? What should I be calling it? You're muted.
Okay, the proper parliamentary term would be to postpone indefinitely,
Postpone.
which would have the effect that the committee is not officially taking a position on it at this time. And so that would require a majority vote.
So before I make that motion, I'll, if anyone has any debate or comments that they would like to make related to that.
I agree with your assessment, Mayor Kriseman. I scratched my head as I read this, so I will second your motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. It's been seconded. Mayor Romero.
Yeah, just a question. What we're doing is putting this resolution aside so that whomever sponsored it can try and work additional language with an end goal in mind, correct? We're not tabling it so that it never comes back.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please.
So the effect of adopting the motion to postpone indefinitely would simply be that the committee is not taking a position on it. It's not supporting it. It's not rejecting it. It's just deciding not to push it forward with support the way it is now. So that would be the effect of adopting this motion.
Any other questions or debate? Seeing none, with those in favor of the motion to postpone, please signify such by raising your hand. And any opposed to the motion, please signify such by raising your hand. Okay.
Unanimous.
Okay, so the motion to postpone has been approved. And this one will be reported out as postponed with indefinitely. Okay. And the last resolution that we had pulled is resolution number 57, support for plastic pollution reduction. I had asked for this one to be pulled because there was language in the resolution that seemed to be supportive, where was asking the conference to be supportive of individual state legislation that was pending. As a body, we normally weigh in on federal legislation that's either pending, or we encourage legislation to be filed federally. We don't typically weigh in on state legislation, and so that was the reason that I asked for this item to be pulled. I would probably move to postpone, but I want to open it up to see. I know Mayor Budd is on, and I know you were a sponsor or co-sponsor, so let me recognize you.
Well, I would be willing to move this and to delete the references to specific legislation. I put those in there because I thought they might be helpful to people to understand examples of what's happening in Congress and in some states. But I wouldn't want that to stand in the way of passing it. So you know, there's the last whereas that cites a state of Maine. I mean, I'm not sure if you object to all references or just the ones in the therefore be resolved. Is it? Can you clarify that?
Yes, I can. And in anticipation of this possibility, we have, and I asked, working with staff to draft some alternative language, which I can put up in just a minute. But I do want to, before I do that, I would want to give Mayor Pauley and Mayor Goodman an opportunity to also weigh in, and then I can ask Judy to put up some language that I think would potentially accomplish what you were suggesting. Mayor Pauley?
Thank you, Mayor Kriseman. I apologize if I get frozen or hung up, but I'm in transit, so the signal is as good as the signal is. My comment was a little bit different. I was hoping that this potential resolution would go a little bit further. I think if we're going to take a material like plastics and call it a pollutant, I'm interested in encouraging at the federal level that we consider the same, and I use the words cradle to grave not lightly. I know that that has a huge meaning. The manufacturers are still making it, making the product and selling it to, you know, drinking water companies, whatever, and then it ends up as a pollutant in our creeks and streams and as microplastics in the ocean. I was hoping we were going to go a little further and potentially put some languages that says we'd like to see the federal level regulate this such that it A, discourages the use of single-use plastics, and B, puts the onus on the manufacturer and not necessarily on the person who tosses the water bottle out the side of the car, kind of thing. So anyway, that was just a suggestion. I don't have the document open and don't have any additional language to add, but wondered if anybody else would be interested in taking a reach like that.
Could I respond? Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, Mayor Butt.
Well, what this does, if you read it, you know, it basically says that we should be pursuing everything, including what you suggested. So this is not focusing on any one single solution. It's focusing on all of them. And what's happened to date is there are interest groups out there who want to focus on single items. You know, the manufacturers of these plastics really want to focus on recycling. They want to tell us that recycling is the solution. And I just read a report this morning, a brand new report out that says that 91% of plastics are not recycled. 91%, which means that 9% are recycled. The other 91% either go into a landfill or go into the ocean. So anyway, the spirit of this is that we should be pursuing every solution, not just single solutions or not any one single solution. So I think it covers what you're asking.
Thank you, Mayor Butt. Mayor Goodman?
My comments in line a little bit there, but it really is more about we should be supporting research into how disintegrating plastics could be, repurposing, the recycling I've heard about that it is very challenging, but I think we should be working towards this as a very, very significant piece for every single community. And it should be for supporting funding research to repurpose, recycle, disintegrate, whatever, however, and with a timeline that we expect certain things to happen in a certain time frame, because we will be kicking this down the road in another 25 years, exactly as we've been doing for the past 20 years.
Thank you, Mayor Goodman. Mayor Paul?
Thank you very much for bringing this up. And I think that the plastic situation is unbearable, especially here in Florida, where the coastal communities are suffering tremendously. And also the problem that our recycling market has dried up. And this has happened in many other communities. People that recycle and don't clean the things properly, the contamination issue, and the fact that we no longer have anyone to sell this to for recycling. Broward County and is now looking at a countywide recycling program. But in the meantime, on this particular resolution, I agree with it. I think perhaps what Mayor Pauly said was that we could strengthen the language. Mayor Butt said that if all the things that she indicated were in there, but maybe we can strengthen it in some way.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. It might be, I think, helpful if, Judy, if we put up that draft language, as I kind of anticipated, we might move in this direction. And so working with staff, we tried to address the concern I had, but still fulfill the spirit of what Mayor Butt was wanting to see in here and what we've heard from you all. What you'll see there is the original proposed change language is directly underneath that, and then there is the version there where you can see the comparison language of what's been removed and what is left. And so I'll give you all a chance to take a look at that and see if that gets accomplishes what you all were hoping for. And then I'll recognize you in just a second, Mayor Butt, and just give everybody a chance to read that.
Mayor Butt? Are you recognizing me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I don't have any problem with this. I think the essence of the resolution is still there. And I really think it covers all the areas that people are interested in. It discusses increased recycled content, phasing out certain plastic products, additional manufacturer responsibility, microplastics and microfibers, restricting the export, and pausing new plastic reduction. So it really, I think it covers all the bases.
Very good, thank you. Let's see, Mayor. Paul, you have your hand up. Is that a new hand or is that from the previous?
No, it's still up. Did I take it down?
It's okay.
I was just gonna say that I think the proposed change is a little clearer. It's not as cumbersome. Would work.
Mayor Pauly?
Thank you. I make a suggestion, and if it is something folks want to do, I'll make a motion to amend. But where I would like to see some language added, if we're in the comparison one, when we start with the list of things that we're trying to do that address plastic pollution with reduction strategies that include, I would love to add at the front of that, that include eliminating single-use plastics, comma, and then continue all of the rest. Because what I think we need to be aiming for is to reduce the overall amount of plastics in the waste stream. And what is going to still remain would then be subject to let's reuse, repair, and recycle, et cetera. But I really think our goal ought to be to eliminate single-use plastics and the other strategies. I agree with what Mayor Butt said. He has covered all the bases. I just want to put that out there as a priority. And if there's support for that, I'll propose an amendment.
Mayor Romero?
Yes, I absolutely support that additional language of eliminating single-use plastics. It makes the resolution that much stronger and clearer. So I would definitely support that additional language and really like the changes of the resolution just to make it stronger. So.
I'll make a comment, then I'm going to recognize Mayor Butt again because I know.
Did I make a motion so that we discuss it? Would the parliamentarian rather I make a motion and then have the discussion, or?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so from a procedural standpoint, it would be in order now to make that motion to insert those words into the proposed substitute that we see highlighted on the screen, and then that could be debated. Debate would be limited to simply inserting those words, and then when that is put to a vote, debate could return to the broader substitute.
Very good. So we have a motion to insert that into the substitute. I think I heard, was there a second by Mayor Romero?
Yeah, second.
Okay. All right, so we'll open it up then for debate. Mayor Butt?
I have no problem with that.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak to the to this amendment to the substitute motion? And Mayor Goodman?
Specific, I think we're better off staying as broad as possible, perhaps down the road, but at this time, no. Not in support of the amendment.
The only comment that I would make, I don't see any other hands unless Mayor Pauly's hand is a new hand. But I know you were the maker of the motion. I agreed with the comment that Mayor Butt had made at the beginning. I thought phasing out certain plastic products did address it, and it addressed it more broadly. So I was comfortable with that. I don't know that we need to add this language at this time to what I think is otherwise a good, strong, clear expression of the conference's position. So that's kind of where my head is on that. But would anyone else like to speak to the motion?
So it's Mayor Pauly here that actually was a new hand, so thank you, if I may.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, please.
I think one of the reasons I made the amendment is because I saw recently some information about additional funding for MERC, the manufacturing facilities where we have someone else sort our waste out for us. and clean it so that it can be as a recycled product. I love what Mayor Butt said about being broad, but I think I also believe it's important to be explicit. What we're doing isn't working. And I wanted to get out in front and say that our ultimate goal is going to be that there is likely in the future very little place for single-use plastics in our environment. And that I think a strong statement still allows us to say what our ultimate goal is, while the language of Mayor Butt's original proposal does cover all of those other possibilities.
Thank you, Mayor Pauly. Would any further discussion or debate related to this proposed amendment of the substitute motion? Mayor Butt.
No, I didn't have anything else. I would hope that we would vote on the amendment. If it doesn't pass, we can go back to the suggested language.
All right, seeing no further requests for comment or debate, those in favor of the amendment, amending the substitute amendment, please signify such by raising your hand.
And just a reminder, technically only committee members can vote. So I came up with too many numbers here. Hold on. You keep your hand up again if you're a
Please
member.
keep your hand up if you're a committee member voting on this amendment.
Okay, that's a better vote. Okay.
And those opposed, please signify such by raising your hand.
Okay. The motion passes 4-2.
So I think, Mr. Parliamentarian, although it looks like we are on the substitute as amended.
Correct.
Okay. Any further, I guess, am I correct in asking for any further debate at this point in time on the substitute resolution as amended?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it is debatable.
Okay. And so I see two hands up. Just want to make sure those are new hands. Mayor Pauly.
Thank you. That is not a new hand.
Okay. Mayor Goodman.
Yes, I just did want to, and I may be totally incorrect, but having just had another vaccination, those are single-use vials, and mine, I believe, was plastic.
Thank you, Mayor Goodman. All right, seeing no further hands raised at this point in time, the question is now on approval of resolution number 57, the substitute resolution as amended. Those in favor of the resolution.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If I may, I want to make sure that the committee is clear that we're voting now on only that block of substitute language to be inserted into the resolution. Thank you.
I thought that was the last vote.
No, the last vote was to insert that the highlighted blue words into that proposed substitute. So now with that highlighted words now included in the substitute, we're now voting on that block of language. Just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. So this won't actually adopt the resolution yet, but it will change the resolution if adopted to include that block instead of the previous block.
Thank you, Tim, because we're voting on Mayor Kriseman's suggested changes. Thank you. Sorry.
All right. So we now have in front of us the substitute language that's been amended, and we are voting on approval of that substitute being added into the resolution and the resolution being amended as such. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All right, any opposed, please signify by raising your hand.
It passed 5-1, the substitute language.
Substitute language has been adopted, and now we are on the resolution as amended and ready to vote finally. Okay, so all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All right, and those opposed, please signify by raising your hand.
Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you very much. The resolution is approved. And with that, members of the committee, we are done with the resolution portion of our meeting. Thank you all very much for your attention and your work on these important issues. And I thought it was a great debate and suggestions. So thank you all very much. We are now going to move on to the presentation on the city's race to zero. And mayors, we just, as part of our action, passed a resolution endorsing the city race to zero effort. And while I recognize it is not yet officially the Conference of Mayors policy, I did feel that the topic was too important to not address during the time that we have allotted. I'm not sure if any of you have seen the recently released IPCC report on the status of climate change, but the situation is worse than previously thought. And I'm just going to give you a few headline statements from the report. One, it is unequivocal that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land. The scale of recent changes across the climate system as a whole are unprecedented over many centuries to many thousands of years. Human-induced climate change is already affecting many weather and climate extremes in every region across the globe. And evidence of observed changes in extremes such as heat waves, heavy precipitation, droughts, and the tropical cyclones, and in particular, their attribution to human influence has strengthened since the 5th assessment report. Now, many mayors, including myself, have signed up for the city's race to zero, and I wanted to use this opportunity to have our speakers brief us all on the campaign, what it entails, why it's important, and how to get involved. And I'm pleased that some of the organizations that we work closely with were able to join us here today, including Angie Fife, the Executive Director of ICLEI USA, Laura J., Regional Director for North America, Regions and Mayoral Engagement for C40, and Katie Walsh, Head of Cities, States, and Regions for CDP North America. Thank you all very much for joining us today and for all of your work in helping local governments. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to these great panelists.
Thank you, Mayor Kriseman, and thank you so much for your leadership on this committee. And congratulations to the committee today for passing the city's Race to Zero resolution. I'm sharing my screen. I just want to make sure that everybody can see this just okay. Give me a thumbs up. Thank you, Judy. So we're here to talk about the city's Race to Zero. And again, congratulations on passing the resolution on this. And so just wanted to give you the broader framework of what the Race to Zero is. And so the Race to Zero is really a global campaign that's rallying cities, businesses, investors, and regions to align and make commitments around the goals of the Paris Agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. This is an official campaign of the United Nations and really serves as the first formal mechanism in which cities and businesses and other non-national government, non-state actors have an avenue to really participate in that process of the United Nations. And I think it really speaks to all the hard work that cities have been doing over the number of years to address climate change, that really the United Nations has now created a pathway for cities to be recognized as part of this fight and to make those commitments alongside national governments. So there are currently over 700 cities that are part of the Cities Race to Zero, with about 60 pending. Our goal is to reach 1,000 by COP26, which is happening in Glasgow in November. 3,000 businesses, 600 universities, and 31 regions. And so we are all working extremely hard, and thank you to the mayors on the line today who have been working on this to really recruit cities from around the world, and particularly here within the United States. So the Cities Race to Zero is the city-specific track of this effort. And as you can see, so Mayor Garcetti of Los Angeles, our dear friend, serves as the chair of C40 of my organization and really spearheading this effort globally. And as you can see from this quote, he's really with the message of we are the first generation to really address this and the last one that has to really take this issue seriously, as Mayor Kriseman pointed out. And so the Cities Race to Zero aims to deliver really a better future by addressing equity together with the climate movement, to build coalitions. It's really kind of at the heart of what the commitment is. And so there's 5.
We get everybody to mute their mics. Thank you.
So very quickly, there are 5 requirements that were in the resolution itself, so I won't go through this in detail, but urge you, Katie will put the link in the chat for kind of find out more, but there are really kind of 5 pledges on this. One is really around ensuring that equity gets considered into climate action. You've just passed other resolutions that touch on this as well. Really setting science-based targets, and Angie's going to touch on the importance of this. And then really identifying a high impact action within your city, something that many of you as part of the Environment Committee are already doing, and really publish your targets and your actions to ensure there's accountability behind this campaign. There are currently 88 cities signed on within the United States to the Cities Race to Zero. Thank you for all those who've already joined, and would love for everybody here and many more to join. We're also going to put a link to this live map so you can see it, but really encourage all of you to go formally join this important initiative. I'm going to turn it over to Angie now to talk us through a little bit the science-based targets and some of the resources available.
Great. Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you so much to all of the mayors for your participation in this activity. I wanted to talk about what's different about the Race to Zero, because obviously you've all made commitments around climate change in many different venues in the past. What's a little bit different with the Race to Zero is that for the first time, we now have the ability to set a science-based target at the local government level. This is something that corporations have been doing for a while. Last fall, our organizations, C40, ICLEI, CDP, and others came together at the global level to come up with a methodology to set this target, which will allow you as a local leader to understand where your city needs to be by 2030 in order to be a zero energy, zero emissions community by 2050. And this is what the Paris Agreement requires of us. Now, when I saw these numbers, I took a gulp and said, really? We're going to get to that level by 2030. But I'm happy to say that we've done a little bit of an analysis at ICLEI, and we know that this is feasible. Next slide, please, Laura. Thank you. So we did a quick review of 100 city inventories, greenhouse gas inventories that have been completed since 2016. And we found that the largest drivers of emissions at the city level, you know what they are. Next slide, please. Is grid intensity. So fossil fuels on our grid, electricity grid, the building electrification pillar is incredibly important. We need to continue to clean the grid and then move buildings and transportation to electrification. Our analysis of these 100 cities found that about across the 100, about 35% of emissions come from transportation, 65% from buildings being commercial, residential, and industrial. We also know that there are supporting pathways that are important. Food systems, you've just talked about the circular economy in your discussion about plastics, community resilience, how do we become more resilient to climate change using nature-based solutions and reducing waste and methane in our communities. Next slide, please, Laura. So the good news is that our analysis of these 100 cities found that with existing technology, with existing policy instruments, we can, in fact, hit these 2030 targets and become zero emissions communities by 2050. We will not be able to do it alone as cities. We will need to have partners at the state, regional, and utility level, but we have many resources here to help you along that pathway. And so my final slide is to say, please reach out to us at C40, at ICLEI, at CDP. We all have resources available to help you and your staff, and we look forward to supporting you in this effort. And I'll turn it over to Katie, please.
Great, thank you, Angie, and thank you, Mayor, and all those on the committee today. So CDP, C40, ICLEI, we are your partners. As Angie said, we're providing local governments with technical support, and CDP serves as the accountability and reporting mechanism for this initiative. The global economy looks to CDP as the indispensable system for environmental disclosure because of the link between environmental and financial information. And I want to recognize many of the cities today who've been participating over the last several years. This accountability is so important to back up your commitments and stay on track. And through these efforts, your city and participation in Race to Zero, you're showing your city's preparedness to climate change. As elected officials, you know that the scale of this challenge is that you need to be prepared for anything, and unpredictability is what challenges cities the most. So showing how your city is assessing and managing climate-related opportunities and risks by way of participation in Race to Zero is especially important from the financial and capital markets and the opportunity presented by this new infrastructure bill. Next slide. We saw this in last year's CDP disclosure, where there were 97 US cities that reported over 300 sustainable infrastructure and climate resilient projects seeking over 10 billion in investment from Florida to California. These cities reported projects ranging from electric vehicles to energy efficiency retrofits. And this is really only a fraction of the ambition that you have in your cities. So your participation and your focus on action provides policymakers and investors visibility on municipal needs, how you are incorporating climate action into your capital plans and your urban planning process. And this is going to be especially important now with US infrastructure bill to maximize public dollars and really show how these projects and plans will be implemented if funding can be completed. All of this is positioning your city to take advantage of the moment and accelerate jobs growth and opportunities. Next slide. I can't underscore enough how your actions and participation matters to the financial markets. At CDP, we see deep long-term economic changes happening at the heart of our economy on climate change, with evolving norms around the capital markets in incorporating climate change and climate change risk. Investors are increasingly concerned about how climate change and other environmental issues are impacting their investments. And this slide is just from the Government Finance Officers Association, which was featured in a recent report on ESG integration in sub-sovereign debt from UNPRI, and specifically calls on the US Conference of Mayors and other state and local government associations to encourage members to demonstrate their action on climate and participation in disclosure. So really, it's the cities who are positioning themselves to capitalize on these investment trends, who are benefiting. The demand from investors for ESG products, environmental social government products, is skyrocketing across many types of products and services. And again, this is really happening within the municipal space. We've got some really strong examples of cities who are taking advantage of this. You have City of Phoenix, City of Buffalo, who both issued municipal water infrastructure bonds and included their climate goals and their CDP disclosure in both of these offerings, the result of which these were both oversubscribed. So all of these examples really point to how your city's leadership, fiduciary duty on climate change, that there's a deeper shift and that you're participating and sending clear signals for your city and the opportunities from that. Climate action is mainstreaming, and it's the companies and cities that prioritize it today that are really starting to put themselves in competitive advantage. So finally, I'd like to just end with a call back to the winter meeting when the Special Presidential Envoy to Climate, John Kerry, and Gina McCarthy spoke at your winter meeting in January 2021. In his remarks, Kerry highlighted how crucial your actions and participation is with the federal government absent from global climate leadership over the last 5 years. Now our national government needs city leaders and city actions to have credibility and not just the embrace of a 2050 target, but a really clear roadmap of how we're going to get there. And the city's Race to Zero offers the opportunity to meet that moment. Thank you. So we'll wrap up with just going through your next steps. We dropped this in the chat on how you can join the Race to Zero, and we provide our contact information at the end. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank the three of you very much for your presentation and your work and assistance to cities as we pursue the city's Race to Zero. I'm going to, in the few minutes that we have left, I'm going to open it up for Any questions or discussion? And if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. I'm going to just use my prerogative as the chair to ask the first one. And I see Mayor Butt has got his hand up, so I'll recognize him after I ask my question. But so the first question I have is, I know it might be dependent on your individual community, but for the three of you, I'd be interested in your opinion. If you were a mayor and can only do one thing in your community, what is the single best public policy or program that you would implement that would provide the biggest reduction in greenhouse gas emissions? Whoever would like to answer.
It's a great question. Angie, do you want to go ahead and take that one?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Kriseman, for the question. As I said, my big three are grid decarbonization, building electrification, and moving to electric mobility. And so I think unless you have a municipal utility, the grid decarbonization question is more of an advocacy role and working with your utility and your state regulators and your state legislature. What you can do locally, of course, is also context dependent on what your state allows and does not allow in the way of things like building codes. But transportation is really something that all mayors are working on, and certainly working at a regional scale. And so I think linking arms with others in your region on the mobility issue is certainly a good strategy. So let me summarize by saying advocacy, state, federal, working on local codes and building energy efficiency and distributed renewable energy, and then working in your region on transportation.
Mayor Butt.
First, I have a request. Would somebody send us a copy of that presentation? And it doesn't need to be a PowerPoint. It could be a PDF, but I'd like to have it. The second thing is I chair Marine Clean Energy, which was the first consumer choice aggregation in California and is still one of the largest. California now consumer choice aggregation agencies serve 11 million customers in California with a total of 6,000 megawatts of energy. And one of the challenges we have, believe it or not, is that we have too much renewable energy. Our organization is actually in the middle of the day. We have too much solar energy, and we end up having to sell it off cheap. So what I'm saying is that in these presentations, one of the things I see lacking is a discussion about storage. Storage is really the key to the future of the use of renewable energy. If you don't have storage, it's just not going to work. And there's a lot of emphasis now on batteries, but one of the things we're looking at is hydrogen. You can use solar or wind energy to create clean hydrogen through electrolysis of water when you have excess solar energy in the daytime, and then you can run it through a fuel cell at night to create electricity. So that I think is our current biggest challenge in the area of renewable energy.
Thank you, Mayor. Great point. Any additional questions as we come to the end of our time that we've been allotted? Actually, we've gone a little over, but Judy?
I just wanted to sit, Mayor, but I will send to the entire committee, if it's okay with the speakers, a copy of the presentation to all the committee members and participants.
Thank you.
Right, I don't see any other hands or any other questions up at this time, and I know we've run a little bit over. So as we wrap up today, let me first thank our panelists. And I want to thank you all for your participation. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank our great staff here at the Conference of Mayors, and Judy and David and everyone, and Tim. The entire team are truly amazing, and it's been a blast getting to work with you all. I also want to strongly encourage all the mayors in attendance today to sign on to the city's Race to Zero, and to challenge other mayors in your community and your state to join you in signing up My guess is a lot of you are probably already doing things in your community that would meet the requirements of the pledge. And so it's just simply a matter of continuing what you're doing and going on and signing, formally signing the pledge. Look, we have no time to waste to try and curtail our greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, we have more opportunity. There are more opportunities as it relates to this committee to do additional webinars on a variety of topics. And so if you've got something that you'd be interested in learning more about or discussing, please let myself or Judy on our staff know. And lastly, a reminder that the Water Council will be meeting on September 1st at 1 p.m. And so if you haven't registered to attend, go ahead and please register. If you want to attend, we'd love to have you. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mayor
Thank
Kriseman.
you.
Thank you very much.